In the vibrant and often chaotic expanse of downtown Detroit, a dramatic and fateful encounter was on the verge of unfolding, poised to leave an indelible mark on all involved. Officer Rick Thompson, a battle-hardened veteran of the Detroit Police Department, sat in his patrol car, a figure of stern authority amid the city's relentless energy. His routine patrol was abruptly disrupted when a strikingly elegant red Ferrari roared past him, cutting through the urban landscape with an almost defiant grace. Thompson's attention was instantly drawn not merely by the car's impressive sleekness, but by the darker complexion of its driver, a black woman behind the wheel. This moment ignited a storm of prejudiced assumptions within him, fueled by years of skewed observations that erroneously linked luxury vehicles with criminality. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Without a second thought, Thompson's hand moved with practiced precision to activate his siren and lights, his heart racing with the conviction that he was about to uncover another criminal enterprise. His mind, steeped in biased preconceptions, was already weaving a narrative of drug deals and nefarious activities. With over 15 years of experience on the force, Thompson prided himself on being a staunch enforcer of the law. Yet beneath his badge lay a troubling legacy of racial profiling, a blemish on his career that had not gone unnoticed by the community he swore to protect. Despite his belief that his actions were safeguarding the streets, his methods had become increasingly dubious. Detroit's streets, a vivid tapestry of towering office buildings juxtaposed with crumbling old structures, were alive with the bustling rhythm of city life. Amid this urban symphony, the red Ferrari gleamed like a jewel, its luxurious presence starkly contrasting with the city's backdrop of hardship and struggle. This car was not just a testament to opulence, it was a glaring symbol of wealth in a neighborhood often defined by economic disparity and daily battles for survival. At the heart of this lavish vehicle sat Maya Johnson, a highly esteemed human rights attorney whose reputation was built on years of tireless advocacy and an unwavering commitment to justice. In her early 30s, Maya exuded an air of authority and confidence, her sharp features reflecting the strength and resilience she had cultivated through her work. Her Ferrari was not merely a luxury, it was a symbol of her hard-earned success and a reflection of her unyielding dedication to her clients. Today, she was in Detroit to tackle a high-profile case that involved defending a group of young black individuals wrongly accused of a crime. Her mission was driven by a deep-seated passion for justice and a desire to correct the wrongs that plagued the legal system. As Maya maneuvered through the congested streets, her mind was solely focused on the critical work ahead. The sleek Ferrari, equipped with cutting-edge technology and exuding an air of sophistication, drew admiring glances and whispers from passers-by. Yet Maya remained completely absorbed in her noble mission, blissfully unaware of the brewing storm just behind her. The collision between her dignified pursuit of justice and Officer Thompson's prejudiced assumptions was set to ignite a series of events that would unravel in ways neither of them could have anticipated. The ensuing confrontation would challenge their perceptions and bring to light the deep-seated issues that lay beneath the surface of this seemingly ordinary day. Officer Rick Thompson's patrol car glided to a halt behind the gleaming red Ferrari, the flashing lights and blaring siren punctuating the rhythm of downtown Detroit. In the confines of her luxurious vehicle, Maya Johnson's gaze flickered nervously to the rearview mirror. A faint frown tugged at her lips, though she was well aware that she had committed no infraction. Nonetheless, the sight of the police always evoked a sense of unease, a reminder of the often unspoken tensions that simmered beneath the surface. With a practiced maneuver, Maya signaled and eased the Ferrari to the curb, her movements smooth and deliberate. Officer Thompson approached with an unmistakable aura of suspicion and hostility, his hand resting possessively on his holster as he peered through the darkened windows. The weight of his scrutinizing gaze felt like a palpable pressure. Maya rolled down her window, her expression a careful blend of calm and composed, her eyes meeting his with a tranquil steadiness. "License and registration," Thompson barked, his tone edged with a preemptive judgment. Maya handed over her documents with measured silence, fully aware of the necessity to maintain her composure in such charged encounters. As Thompson perused the papers, his gaze flicked back to Maya with an intensity that bordered on accusation. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" he demanded, his voice carrying a note of hostility that suggested he already suspected her of wrongdoing. Maya responded calmly that she was here for business and inquired if there was a specific issue. Thompson's eyes grew colder, his demeanor hardening further. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered sharply, his conviction that this was more than a routine stop driving his actions. The opulence of her car, coupled with her unruffled demeanor, seemed to trigger alarm bells in his mind, distorting his perception of the situation. With a resigned sigh, Maya complied and stepped out onto the sidewalk, her movements deliberate but tinged with an underlying tension. Thompson's eyes roved over her with an air of expectation, as if searching for some sign of illicit activity that might justify his gut feeling. His instincts, tainted by prejudice and flawed reasoning, were on high alert. "I'm going to search the vehicle," he announced abruptly, not waiting for her consent. Maya, well versed in her rights, questioned whether he had probable cause, but her query was met with stony silence as Thompson proceeded towards her car. Her heart pounded with a mix of anxiety and frustration. She was acutely aware that this search was unjustified, yet she knew better than to provoke the situation further. Her focus was on ensuring her safety and addressing the issue through appropriate legal channels at a later time. As Thompson rifled through her vehicle's interior with increasingly frustrated movements, he found nothing of concern. His face betrayed a growing sense of exasperation as he grappled with the realization that his preconceived notions had failed him. Maya, standing on the sidewalk, maintained a facade of calm while feeling a smoldering anger beneath her composed exterior. Her past encounters with discrimination had not dimmed her ability to recognize injustice, though each instance of it continued to sting deeply. Finally, Thompson's frustration reached a boiling point. He turned to Maya with a steely resolve, declaring, "You're coming with me," as he reached for his handcuffs. Maya's eyes widened with alarm, her mind racing at the sheer absurdity of the situation. She demanded to know the grounds for her arrest, but Thompson was already pulling her hands behind her back, his actions a stark display of authority and prejudice. The escalation of the situation was bewildering, and Maya's resolve to confront this blatant overreach of power was tempered by a pressing need to remain composed and seek justice through the proper channels later. As Officer Rick Thompson tightened the handcuffs around Maya Johnson's wrists, the harsh metal bit into her skin, a sharp, unwelcome reminder of the injustice she was enduring. Despite the physical discomfort and the growing turmoil within, Maya's exterior remained a portrait of calm. She concentrated on her breathing, forcing herself to remain composed and measured. With a steady voice, she told Thompson that his actions were unlawful, but her words were met with cold indifference. Thompson's mind was resolutely fixed on his prejudiced assumptions. Ignoring her protests, he flung open the back door of his patrol car and pushed her inside. The handcuffs, tight and unforgiving, made it a struggle for her to find a comfortable position in the confined space. With a sense of finality, Thompson slammed the door shut and strode around to the driver's side, convinced that he had correctly identified a criminal in his midst. In his skewed worldview, the Ferrari's opulence and Maya's unshaken confidence were damning evidence of illicit activity. As the patrol car rumbled towards the station, Maya stared out of the window, her gaze fixed on the passing cityscape. Each passing moment felt like an eternity, and the reality of her situation weighed heavily on her. She was acutely aware that this arrest was a blatant abuse of power, a perversion of the very legal system she had dedicated her life to defending. Anger surged within her, but she fought to suppress it, knowing that there would be a time to confront this injustice through legal avenues. For now, she needed to maintain her composure and prepare for the battle ahead. Upon arrival at the station, Thompson guided her through the dimly lit corridors, his colleagues casting curious or indifferent glances in their direction. Maya's resolve was unshaken, though the gravity of her predicament was starting to sink in as she was led to a holding cell. Once inside, she reiterated that Thompson's actions were a grievous error and warned him that the consequences would be dire. Thompson merely smirked, dismissing her warnings as he locked the cell door behind her and walked away, his steps echoing down the hall. Maya took a seat on the hard bench in the cell, her mind racing as she processed the unfolding events. Despite the overwhelming sense of injustice, she understood the necessity of remaining strong and resilient. This was only the beginning of what promised to be a significant legal and social battle. As time dragged on, news of Maya's arrest began to ripple through the community. Her colleagues, influential contacts, and a network of powerful allies quickly became aware of the situation. The stir caused by her arrest mobilized a formidable coalition of lawyers, activists, and politicians who began converging on the station in response to the unfolding crisis. Inside the station, Thompson was summoned to the chief's office. His initial confidence faltered as he entered the room, confronted by the stern, disapproving faces of his superiors. The chief's voice was sharp and accusatory as he demanded, "Do you have any idea who you just arrested?" He threw a thick file onto the desk, its weight symbolic of the gravity of the situation. Thompson's eyes scanned the pages, his heart sinking as he absorbed the details. Maya Johnson was not just any attorney, she was a high-profile human rights advocate with a storied reputation for challenging powerful adversaries and achieving remarkable victories against daunting odds. The realization hit him with full force: his rash and prejudiced decision had inadvertently targeted a figure of immense influence and respect. The weight of potential repercussions settled heavily on Thompson's shoulders, a stark reminder of the profound misstep he had made. In the stark confines of the holding cell, Maya Johnson maintained her unshakable calm, her inner strength unwavering despite the grim circumstances. The moments stretched interminably, but it wasn't long before her legal team stormed into the station, their arrival marked by a palpable sense of urgency and determination. They demanded her immediate release, armed with a dossier of evidence that unequivocally demonstrated the unlawful nature of her arrest and the glaring absence of probable cause. The atmosphere in the station crackled with tension as the confrontation unfolded. Maya's legal team, relentless and resolute, wasted no time in initiating a lawsuit against the police department. The accusations were grave racial profiling and unlawful arrest. The situation was further exacerbated by the rapid dissemination of news about Maya's arrest. Within hours, social media was inundated with outrage and calls for justice. Hashtags like Justice for Maya and End Racial Profiling began trending nationwide, each tweet and post amplifying the growing public outcry. The impact of the arrest reverberated through downtown Detroit, where a diverse and impassioned crowd gathered outside the police station. Protesters brandished signs that read "Justice for Maya and Racial Profiling and Black Lives Matter," their voices rising in unison against the systemic racism and abuse of power that had precipitated Maya's arrest. Local activists and community leaders took to the makeshift stage, delivering impassioned speeches that condemned the corrupt practices and demanded accountability, transparency, and substantial reform within the police department. Maya, watching the unfolding events from her lawyer's office, saw a sea of familiar faces among the protesters' colleagues, friends and clients she had championed over the years, each one a testament to her unwavering commitment to justice. As the pressure mounted on the police department, city officials were inundated with calls and emails from concerned citizens and influential figures, all demanding swift and decisive action. The mayor, sensing the gravity of the situation, convened a press conference and pledged a comprehensive investigation into the arrest. The police chief, facing intense scrutiny, assured the public that the department would fully cooperate with the investigation, though his assurances did little to quell the rising storm of criticism. Inside the station, Officer Thompson felt the weight of the situation bearing down on him. His colleagues regarded him with growing suspicion, their disapproval palpable. The once confident officer found himself questioning his judgment as the reality of his actions came crashing down. The community's outrage was a formidable force, and Thompson was at the heart of it, grappling with the consequences of his actions. As the protests persisted and the investigation delved deeper, a shocking revelation emerged. An anonymous source provided Maya's legal team with a cache of documents and recordings that uncovered a much larger conspiracy within the police department. The evidence revealed a web of corruption and deceit, exposing how officers, including Thompson, had orchestrated a frame-up against the very group of black youths Maya had come to defend. The documents detailed a sordid scheme in which corrupt officers had planted evidence and coerced witnesses to secure wrongful convictions. The recordings, laced with the officers' incriminating conversations, captured their scheming and their perverse satisfaction in their duplicitous victories. The discovery of this explosive evidence added a new dimension to the already intense scrutiny facing the police department. It was clear that Maya's wrongful arrest was just the tip of the iceberg in a deeply entrenched culture of corruption and abuse. As the layers of deception were peeled back, the calls for justice grew louder, and the fight for accountability took on an urgency that no amount of denial or resistance could ignore. When Maya Johnson's legal team unveiled the explosive evidence to the media, the impact was immediate and profound. News outlets, seizing on the sensational nature of the revelations, broadcasted the damning recordings and documents with relentless urgency. The public's indignation reached a fever pitch as the story evolved from a wrongful arrest case to a sweeping indictment of systemic corruption and racism within the police department. Officer Rick Thompson watched in mounting horror as his name and face were splashed across every screen. The footage revealed his actions in chilling detail, exposing his involvement in a corrupt system that had systematically targeted and oppressed innocent individuals. He had once believed he was upholding justice and protecting the community, but now the stark reality hit him. He was part of a deeply flawed and malignant system. The scandal ignited a surge of new protests across the city. People who had previously remained silent found their voices, sharing personal accounts of police misconduct and abuse. The once quiet grievances transformed into a roaring call for reform that was impossible to ignore. In response, Internal Affairs accelerated their investigation, uncovering a network of officers engaged in a range of illegal activities, from racial profiling to fabricating evidence. The fallout was swift. Several officers, including Thompson, were placed on administrative leave pending a thorough investigation. The city council convened emergency meetings, grappling with the crisis and seeking solutions. Amid this turmoil, Maya Johnson remained resolute in her pursuit of justice. She leveraged her platform to advocate for systemic change and transparency, tirelessly working with her legal team to hold the responsible parties accountable. Her courage and resilience in the face of such adversity transformed her into a symbol of hope and defiance. Her ordeal sparked a broader national conversation about police reform, racial profiling, and the pervasive issue of systemic racism, gaining momentum and drawing attention far beyond Detroit. In the end, Thompson's life was irrevocably altered by the mounting legal and public pressure. He was forced to resign from the police force, his resignation marking the collapse of his once proud career and casting him as a symbol of the corruption he had perpetrated. Conversely, Maya emerged as a beacon of justice and reform. Her relentless advocacy led to significant changes in policing practices and a renewed emphasis on civil rights. Her voice became a powerful instrument in the ongoing fight for those who had been silenced by injustice. The red Ferrari, once a symbol of suspicion and prejudice, came to embody the transformative power of standing up for what is right. Maya Johnson's story was a potent reminder that while justice may be delayed, it can be achieved through unwavering courage, persistent effort, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Her legacy served as a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity and the profound impact one person's bravery can have on the world. In the courtroom, tension hung heavily in the air as Thompson sat beside his legal team, his face a mask of apprehension. The judge, an imposing figure, called the court to order, signaling the start of a trial that would unravel the truth behind the scandalous events. On the other side of the courtroom, Maya's legal team prepared to present their case. Leading them was Rachel, a formidable lawyer known for her sharp intellect and persuasive skills. Rachel rose to address the court, her voice steady and resolute. "Your Honor," she began, "we will demonstrate that Officer Thompson's actions were not merely an isolated instance of misconduct. Rather, they are indicative of a larger, deeply entrenched pattern of racial profiling and corruption within the police department." Her gaze was steady, her words carrying the weight of justice as she continued. "Our evidence will reveal a sinister conspiracy designed to frame innocent youths, orchestrated by a network of corrupt officers." As Rachel laid out the foundation of the case, the prosecution attempted to undermine Maya's credibility, portraying her as a contentious figure who had provoked the situation. But Rachel was prepared for this line of attack. With precision and grace, she called Maya to the stand. Maya took her place with an air of quiet strength, her demeanor reflecting the calm determination that had seen her through countless battles for justice. She recounted the events of her wrongful arrest with meticulous detail, her clarity and composure dismantling the prosecution's narrative with each measured word. The courtroom was on edge as Rachel introduced the pivotal evidence. She presented a comprehensive dossier that included incriminating documents, damning recordings, and compelling witness testimonies. The recordings played, and the room fell into a hushed silence. The sounds of the officers' conversations, filled with brazen admissions of misconduct and a blatant disregard for justice, echoed through the courtroom. The evidence was overwhelming, each piece a testament to the corruption that had festered within the department. Thompson's face, once firm with the confidence of a man who believed in his righteousness, now turned pale as he absorbed the full impact of the evidence. The recordings exposed his actions and those of his colleagues with unrelenting clarity. The weight of the courtroom's gaze bore down on him as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his conviction faltering under the scrutiny of the judge and jury. The gravity of the situation was palpable as the courtroom processed the staggering revelations that had emerged. Rachel's meticulous presentation effectively dismantled the prosecution's attempts to discredit Maya and exposed the deep-rooted corruption within the police department. The courtroom's atmosphere was charged with a mix of shock and resolve, as the evidence painted a clear picture of a corrupt system that had systematically targeted and oppressed innocent individuals. The trial was now a turning point, one that would determine not only Thompson's fate, but also the future of the police department's integrity and the pursuit of justice. As the defense seemed to gain ground, Rachel's strategic move to call a surprise witness turned the tide. The courtroom buzzed with curiosity as the doors swung open, revealing a distinguished figure. Captain David Harrison, a high-ranking officer in the Detroit Police Department, strode confidently to the witness stand. His presence caused an immediate stir among the spectators. Murmurs and whispers rippled through the crowd as they recognized the esteemed officer. Rachel approached the stand with a purposeful stride. "Captain Harrison," she began, her voice clear and authoritative, "thank you for joining us today. Could you please state your position within the department and your involvement in this case?" Harrison adjusted his suit and cleared his throat, his expression serious. "I am the captain of the precinct where Officer Thompson was assigned," he began. "I have served with the Detroit Police Department for over 20 years. His credentials were impeccable, and his reputation was one of integrity and dedication." Rachel nodded appreciatively, allowing him to continue. Captain Harrison, Rachel pressed, "You have come forward with critical information about a deeper conspiracy within the department. Can you elaborate on your findings for the court?" Harrison took a deep breath, his demeanor reflecting the gravity of his revelations. "For the past several months, I have been conducting a covert investigation into corruption within our department," he said. "What I uncovered is a pervasive network of deceit that extends far beyond Officer Thompson. My investigation revealed that high-ranking officials, as well as certain city officials, have been orchestrating schemes to frame innocent individuals. This manipulation was aimed at skewing crime statistics to secure additional funding and enhance their reputations." The courtroom erupted in gasps of disbelief. The judge swiftly called for order, but the damage was done. The revelation had sent shockwaves through the room, shaking the very foundations of the case and the credibility of the police department. The audience was visibly stunned, their faces reflecting a mix of shock, outrage, and disbelief. Rachel, seizing the moment, pressed further. "Captain Harrison, could you provide specific examples of this corruption and identify the individuals involved?" Harrison nodded solemnly. "Certainly. One instance involves the fabrication of evidence to falsely incriminate a group of black youths. These individuals were targeted as part of a larger strategy to manipulate crime data. The officers responsible for this scheme include several high-ranking officials, including Deputy Chief Roland Davis and Sergeant Linda Cole. They were involved in orchestrating false arrests and coercing witnesses to ensure wrongful convictions." The courtroom was a cacophony of shocked reactions. The judge's gavel struck repeatedly, calling for silence as Harrison's testimony laid bare the depth of the corruption. The evidence of widespread misconduct and deceit was undeniable, and it was clear that the ramifications would be far-reaching. Rachel's strategic move had not only shifted the momentum of the trial, but also exposed a profound and disturbing truth about the systemic issues plaguing the police department. As Harrison continued to provide damning details, the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with a newfound urgency for accountability and justice. Captain Harrison's testimony proved pivotal as he laid bare a deeply entrenched network of corruption within the Detroit Police Department. "I have documented meetings and communications between certain officers and city officials," Harrison declared, including Assistant Chief Reynolds and Councilman Brooks. "These individuals orchestrated the framing of the youths that Maya Johnson was defending. Their goal was to cover up their failures and project a false image of success in combating crime." The courtroom erupted into chaos. The judge's gavel struck forcefully, attempting to restore order. Rachel, undeterred, presented the documentation Harrison had provided, a treasure trove of evidence that included incriminating emails, transcripts of conversations, and financial records detailing illicit transactions. Thompson's lawyer scrambled to object, but the judge overruled, acknowledging the overwhelming relevance of the evidence. The conspiracy was vast, implicating some of the city's most powerful figures and uncovering a pattern of deceit and corruption that extended over many years. As Rachel continued her examination, the full extent of the corruption was laid bare. It became clear that the systemic misconduct had tainted numerous cases, undermining the integrity of the justice system. The once powerful individuals who had orchestrated these deceptions faced a reckoning as the evidence proved insurmountable. Thompson sat in stunned silence, the weight of his actions crashing down on him. He had been a cog in a much larger and more sinister machine, driven by a corrupt system rather than personal malice. The realization of his unwitting complicity in a vast network of wrongdoing left him grappling with profound regret. For Maya, watching the proceedings unfold brought a measure of relief. The truth was coming to light, and the fight for justice was making significant strides. The courtroom, once tense and somber, now vibrated with quiet anticipation as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. When the final decision was announced, it brought a wave of relief and vindication. The corrupt officers, including Assistant Chief Reynolds and Councilman Brooks, were found guilty of conspiracy, corruption, and framing of innocent people. Their powerful positions had crumbled, and they were immediately taken into custody. The verdict was a stark contrast to the facade of authority they had once upheld. Officer Rick Thompson was also found guilty of racial profiling, unlawful arrest, and misconduct. His career and reputation were irrevocably damaged, ensuring he would never serve as a police officer again. As the judge's gavel fell, the courtroom erupted into applause, a collective expression of justice served. Outside the courthouse, the atmosphere was charged with celebration and solidarity. The community, energized and united, filled the streets with jubilant cries and banners declaring victory. The signs of justice for Maya and equality for all fluttered proudly in the wind. It was a moment of triumph not only for Maya but for the entire community that had rallied for justice. This victory was a significant step forward in the ongoing battle against systemic racism and corruption. Maya's courage and resilience had illuminated the truth, and the community's determination had led to meaningful change. The case had set a precedent, signaling that the fight for justice was not in vain and that accountability would ultimately prevail. In the weeks that followed the landmark trial, Maya Johnson became a symbol of community justice and resilience. Her relentless pursuit of truth and her battle against systemic corruption had earned her widespread admiration and respect. One crisp, sunny morning, she was invited to a special ceremony at City Hall, a tribute to her remarkable efforts and the profound impact of her work. The Grand Hall was filled with a distinguished assembly: the mayor, city officials, community leaders, and a gathering of grateful citizens. The atmosphere was one of celebration and solemnity, reflecting the gravity of Maya's achievements. The mayor took to the podium, his voice resonant with gratitude and respect. "Today we honor a true champion of justice," he declared, his gaze sweeping over the assembled crowd. Maya Johnson's dedication and bravery have not only exonerated innocent lives but have also sparked a movement for change within our city. Her actions have illuminated the path to a more just and equitable society. As Maya was called to the stage, the audience erupted in applause. She walked with a graceful composure, her presence commanding admiration. The mayor presented her with a plaque, its inscription reading "For unwavering commitment to fairness, justice, and equality." The words captured the essence of her contributions: her courage in the face of adversity and her steadfast resolve in the pursuit of justice. The ceremony marked not just a personal triumph for Maya but a turning point for the city of Detroit. The ripple effect of her case led to concrete changes within the police department. Reforms were swiftly implemented, aimed at addressing the deep-seated issues that had been brought to light. New training programs were introduced, emphasizing bias reduction and fostering improved community engagement. Officers were now held to higher standards of accountability, and independent oversight committees were established to ensure transparency and integrity. Maya's relentless advocacy had exposed the urgent need for reform, and the city's response was both swift and substantial. The reforms began to reshape the relationship between law enforcement and the community, fostering a renewed focus on justice and equality. As the police department adapted to the new standards, the atmosphere in Detroit began to shift. There was a palpable sense of progress, a collective acknowledgement that meaningful change was possible. Maya continued her work with renewed vigor, channeling her experiences into advocacy and education. Her story served as a powerful reminder of the impact one person could make in the quest for justice. She remained a beacon of hope and a tireless advocate for those who needed their voices heard. The city, inspired by her example, embraced a future shaped by fairness and accountability. The reforms, though just the beginning, were a testament to the enduring power of perseverance and the unyielding pursuit of truth. Maya Johnson's legacy was cemented not only in the changes she had fought for, but in the broader movement she had ignited, a movement dedicated to creating a more just and equitable world for all. The letter detailed the responsibilities and significance of the role, emphasizing Maya's leadership in driving systemic reform nationwide. As she finished reading, she looked out of her office window. The journey that had started with an unlawful arrest and had unfolded into a campaign for justice had now brought her to the threshold of a new and influential chapter in her career. Maya folded the letter carefully, a determined smile spreading across her face. She felt a surge of excitement and resolve. This new role was not just a professional opportunity, it was a chance to extend her impact and inspire transformative change across the country. A few weeks later, back in Detroit, Maya stood on the steps of City Hall. The air was filled with anticipation as she addressed a sea of supporters who had gathered to celebrate the progress made and the path ahead. "This is just the beginning," she declared, her voice resonating with conviction. "We've shown what is possible when we stand together. Now, let's continue to push for the change we need, not just here but everywhere." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the city. Maya looked out over the sea of faces, friends, allies, and community members who had supported her journey. The unity and determination among them were palpable. With the support of her community and the nation behind her, Maya felt an invigorating sense of purpose. She was ready to lead the charge for a more just and equitable future, knowing that her efforts could ignite a wave of reform and progress that extended far beyond Detroit. As she stepped forward, she carried with her the hope of countless individuals and the promise of a better tomorrow. As we wrap up this powerful journey, we've witnessed how a seemingly hopeless situation can spark immense societal change. From Maya's courageous battle for justice to the sweeping reforms that followed, it's clear that individual determination and bravery can lead to transformative outcomes. We'd love to hear from you. What has resonated with you from this story? Share one key lesson you've learned and how you plan to bring it into your own life in the comments below. Your reflections can inspire others and contribute to a broader conversation about change and justice. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.